through the Spirit. Chapter 5, Galatians. Took a while to get here, but we finally made it. Starting in verse 22. So go ahead and be turning there. We'll read this and this last one. Hopefully it don't sting as well. Fruit of the Spirit. Chapter 5 of Galatians. Verse 22 and 23. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Let's have a word of prayer. Father, thank you for your word. God, I just pray now as we go into your word that your Holy Spirit will begin to flow in this place and you'll give us what we need at this hour. God, I pray that we'll begin to develop these fruit in the spirits, Father, or the fruit in the Spirit, so that we can be the Christians that we need to be. It's not in here just for us to glance over, but it's something that we can possess if we'll just lean on you and do the things you've told us to do. So, Father, we just thank you for everything you've done in this place and what you're going to do. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's talk about hard preachers. Now, I remember the day when there were some hard preachers. I mean, I remember the day that when you didn't go to church without coming home with some Band-Aids somewhere. I mean, they was always cutting and swinging, and it seemed like nothing was good. And so you may have heard this, but there was a preacher one time, and he was getting on sin, and everything was going on, and he got on alcohol, because alcohol used to be a very big problem. It probably still is today. I don't hang around that crowd anymore, so I don't know. But it probably was, and he started out, and he said, if I had all the beer in the world, he said, I'd dump it in the river. Because beer has always caused problems. It don't cost that much. It's an easy, lightheaded feeling, and people just do that, and it begins to affect their health, and it begins to affect their pain. So everyone's amen. Back then they did that too. Then he said, if I had all the wine in the world, I'd dump it in the river. Because you've got the social drinkers. They get that little bit of wine and they think, oh, that's okay, I'll drink just a little bit of wine. And before you know it, they're a wine up. They're completely drunk. So I throw that in the river. He said, if I had all the whiskey in the world, he said, the one drink that certainly no one needs to get involved in because its addiction is so bad and the effects are so rough. He said, if I had every bit of it, I'd throw it in the river and get rid of it so we wouldn't have to deal with it again. He said, I guess we'll go ahead and sing our closing hymn. He said, what have you got? And the song leadership would say, shall we gather at the river? That has nothing to do with temperance. Well, I guess it does. Because what does temperance mean? Temperance in essence means self-control. Now, I know people use the scriptures to get away with everything. They say, well, everything's okay as long as it's done in moderation. I advise you not to take whiskey in moderation. I think it's best to stay away from strong drink. I think the Bible instructs that, to stay away from strong drinks. But that's what temperance means. It's a strong in a thing or self-control, particularly with regard of one's passions and desires. The word is found altogether 5 times in the Bible, and it's only in the New Testament. And it literally means inner strength. Inner strength. Now, let me explain what that inner strength is. You'll see psychologists all around the world to tell you, and you see a lot of preachers that love that money coming in every Sunday on television. They'll tell you the power within you. All you got is think right. And you can manifest whatever you want. It's all inside of you. It's inside of you on one condition. If the Holy Spirit's inside of you. If the Holy Spirit's inside of you, He is power. And He will be able to accomplish anything that you need to get done, that you want to get done, that God wants you to get done. Does that make sense? That's a lot of it gets done. So anyhow, there is an inner power that we can have as a Christian. And this is the inner power he's talking about. The self-control is done through only by the Holy Spirit. A matter of fact, all of these gifts that he mentioned in the fruit of the Spirit all come from the Holy Spirit. There is not one single one of these that you can manifest on your own. It all takes walking with God and walking in the Spirit. That's the only way to be done. Today, we're not taught self-control. That's not what we're taught. We're taught anything goes. But to be a good Christian and a good leader, you have to have self-control. And to show you that it doesn't work that way in today's standard, what's some of the things you've heard on commercials? One of them's have it your way. Go to Burger King, have it your way. We'd already discussed that one time. That's a lie. Straight from the pits of hell. You don't have it your way. You tell them what you want, they give you the way they want you to have it. Then you go back inside the store and say, this is what I want. Then you have it your way. What about the one that you deserve a break today? So get up and get away. At McDonald's. Isn't that the one in that McDonald's? You notice all these are restaurant related. Strange, isn't it? Here's another one. Lay's chip. No one can eat just one. At $6 a bag, trust me, I can eat one a day to make that bag last. Yes, sir. And then this is the one I love, especially with Krispy Kreme donuts. If one is good, two is better. And three is just the max. So we've gone from single burgers, 6 small fries, to triple burgers and mega fries. That's what we've done. We have gotten ourselves in America that everything that we want and everything that we need, we don't only get it, we get more than we need. And a matter of fact, if you travel much, you'll find out that most nations are calling us names. You know what they're calling us? Gluttonous. Years and years ago when I went to Israel, that's what they would yell at every tourist that came by. Go home, Yankee. You're gluttonous people. Go home. And we don't see it, and we feel like a lot of times we don't have a lot in our life. For instance, me, we have a modular home, and I'm very glad for it. I love it. We've remodeled it. I think it's great. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. My wife's ready to hit the lotto so we can build a house. That's what she wants. But I like where we're at. But we're in a society now that if you don't have a 3-story home and you don't have brand new cars sitting out in the front yard, you don't have a house full of groceries and a bunch of clothes, then you're not really making it. But we fail to realize that our poorest of poor is still richer than most of the people in America. The people that's eating out of garbage cans here are richer than a lot of people that lives in other countries. See, we don't know what it's like to hold a little baby and watch it die in our arms because it had nothing to eat for the past 3 months. We don't know what it's like to have to go 5 miles with buckets on our head just so that we can get some water and bring it back home and very carefully monitor every little bit that comes out. We're blessed in America, people. We have it our way. Pretty much anytime we want to. So we don't know much about what it is to have self-control. But that's what it's talking about in this verse, is to have self-control. So what's some of the things that we need to have self-control over? One of the things we need control over is our eyes. Matthew chapter 5, 27 through 28. Said, you have heard that it was said by them of old time. Notice he didn't say old people. We don't say that around here, do we? It's old time. Thou shalt not commit adultery, but I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And the way that works, for instance, David. We all know that David fell in that area, right? He looked around. First of all, he had been not what he's supposed to be doing. He's supposed to have been out in battle. It says when the kings were at war, he was not at war. He was sleeping until 12 o'clock in the daytime. Then he gets up and sees this beautiful woman, and he decided, I like that. Instead of him turning his eyes, he went for it. And we see what the consequence was there. Then we see of another person too. He didn't keep his eyes under control much. His name was Lot. Remember, Lot didn't look at no lustful woman. He didn't look that way. What he looked at is he thought about what would be best for his family. Lot, I believe in his heart mentally. He's seen this beautiful plain. He's seen all the riches and stuff that comes out of that. And he thought, wow, that's a good place to stay. But can I tell you, just because a place is nice, it's got all the nice things of life and everything else, doesn't mean you're supposed to be there. Lot found that out. That was a place he shouldn't. Now, Job had the right idea. In Job chapter 31, verse 1, he gives the secret. He said, I made a covenant with my eyes. I made a promise to myself and with my eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? Buddy, I tell you what, it's hard for a man, but it shows a man's character. When some woman comes along and tries to tempt him, and they can say, no, especially a married man. No, I don't want no part of that. That speaks volumes in a man's life. Volumes. And that's exactly where men ought to be. We ought to be the person that we can control our desires of our eyes. And that's hard to do. I'll admit it, it's hard to do. Especially, and this goes both ways. Don't think I'm just sitting there patting the men on the back. It goes both ways. But the devil always knows when the person is to be tempted the most. What happens is, if let's use a woman for instance. The husband and the wife gets into a fuss. And they fight all that morning. The woman gets in her car. She drives to work. And she's fine looking. And she gets through the door. And there's this guy there. And he likes what he sees. So what does he do? What's going on today? Looks like you've been crying. Well, me and my husband had a fuss. Well, if I had you, I know how important you are. I'd lift you up on a pedestal. You'd never have to work again. You'd never have to do anything again. You would be taken care of for the rest of your life. Lies, lies, lies. He's lying. But Satan knows because you're in that weak position, that's going to be a temptation in your life. And it's hard when you're in that place to have that control. Say, no, I'm not going to do that. So we need to have control over our eyes. Matthew 18:9 says, if thine eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. It's better for thee to enter into life with one eye, rather than having two eyes to be cast into hellfire. Can I just advise you on something? If your eye is affecting you, please don't pluck it out. We're going to have a lot of people who's going to have to be driven to church where they ain't got no more eyes to be able to see to get there. The principle he's trying to tell here is, look, it's so important that we keep our self-control that it would be better to yank your eyeball back. How many is willing to do that? I didn't think we'd get many takers on that. So we keep our eyes controlled. That's one thing that we need to do. Proverbs chapter 4, verses 20 through 27 says, my son, attend to my words. Incline thy ear unto my saying, let them not depart from thine eyes. Keep them in the midst of thine heart, for they are life unto those that find them, and health to all their flesh. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Put away from thee a froward mouth, and perverse lips put far from thee. Let thine eyes look right on, and let thy eyelids look straight ahead before thee. Ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established. Turn not to the right hand, nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil. So we need to have control in that. Then we also need to have control over the body. Depriving yourselves of the body's basic needs is not a good thing. We need to take care of the body. There's no doubt about that. It's also called the temple of the Holy Spirit. I built a pretty big temple. And the very first point is going to stomp me right in the toe, just like it did this morning. We shouldn't be overeating. You say, you overeat? Not really. Y'all don't believe that, do you? I don't. You know where my problem is? Sweet Mr. Pibbs. I can drink a gallon of that every single day. I'd rather drink Mr. Pibb than eat. But you know, with every little old Mr. Pibb, matter of fact, I'm going to tell something. A sweet lady in our church, and I ain't going to say who she is, I'll just look that direction. But she was real sweet, and she bought me 2 Dr. Peppers just for me, because she knows I like them, and I thought that was sweet. And by the way, I was going to tell you this too. Everyone kept saying, what was your problem this morning? Why were you so angry? I didn't have no Dr. Pepper this morning. And I said, I was going to mention that, and I bet you I'll never have to buy another one. Y'all all be making sure I got Dr. Pepper to buy out. But I got to looking at the sugar content in that one drink. That one can had over 100 grams of sugar in it. 100 grams. I'm one of the sweetest pastors y'all ever had in your life. I'm just so full of sugar, you just don't know. But that's not good for you. Neither is the caffeine, and yet we consume that on a regular basis. We consume coffee. You say, well, my problem, soft drinks, I only drink coffee. Well, it's full of caffeine. Or a monster drink, you name it. It's caffeine. It's not good for you. So we need to have control over that. Daniel said that he wouldn't eat the king's dainties. You remember that? When he sat there, the king wanted them to eat all his meals and stuff, and yet they wouldn't eat it, and yet they come out looking fair and better shape. Why? Because they was eating like they should. You know, God set forth a diet in the Bible. And if you go by it, you'll have a healthier life. God don't do anything trying to punish us. He's doing it for our good. He made this body. He knows what kind of fuel to go into it. You know, for years I bought weed eater after weed eater after weed eater. And then someone told me why I'm buying weed eater after weed eater after weed eater. He said, what kind of gas you putting in? I said, cheap as I could find. He said, that include the E gas? I said, yeah, E gas, F gas, whatever it is, as long as it's cheap, it's going in there. He said, well, that's your problem. He said, them machines require high-octane gas if you want to keep that thing clean. And you know what? I started putting it in now at $4.50 a gallon, and I ain't had to buy another weed eater yet. So what you put in does come out. What you put in does come out. And it don't just include eating, though. It also includes pampering. Some people overindulge just trying to make themselves good. Now listen to this. Listen. I'm going to open up a business and we're going to retire in this church, okay? You want to know what business I'm going to open? I'm going to find a hot mud spring somewhere and dig a big old hole. I'm going to put a fence and wall around that. And I'm going to charge people $200 a person to come in there and put their body inside that hot mud. And then I'm going to go over there to Dot's garden and I'm going to get some cucumbers. And I'm going to slice them cucumbers. And I'm going to place them gently over their eyeballs. And you know what? We're going to have more money than you can have. Because people love to do that. That's extra pampering. I don't know what it feels like to slide in mud. I did when I was a kid, and my parents always said, get out of there! And now we pay to go in there. See, I don't know if we didn't talk right or wrong. I don't know. It's all confusing to me. But some people really spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to look good. I was working for one person. They were extremely wealthy. I knocked on her door, and she was probably about 85. Scared me out of my wits. I thought it was Halloween. I opened up that door. Her eyes was black and blue. I mean, terrible looking. Face all swollen, and they were 2 black threads hanging off her face. And I said, my goodness, what happened to you? I thought she'd been in a car wreck. I've had a facelift. And I didn't say what I wanted to say. But I thought, what's them screens got to do with that facelift? And come to find out, they pull on them things and lift it up. That's disgusting, isn't it? But can you imagine how much money she paid just so that she could look 2 months younger? Because at 85, she's not going to look like no Prince Charming or Princess Diana going around. It's just not going to happen. But yet people will spend millions and millions of dollars pampering on themselves, trying to look younger with surgery, stuff like that. You know, all that amounts to is pride. That's all it is, it's pride. Then we also need proper sleep. I don't know about you, but the older I got, the less sleep I get. I sleep like a baby. Every 2 hours I'm up. I found out I do more of my studying and reading books and stuff at 2 and 4 and 6 o'clock in the mornings. That's when I'm awake, so that's when I begin to read, and that's when I study. But it seems like the older you get, the worse it is. Now that doesn't mean when it gets around 11:30 and I've ate that big old hamburger, it doesn't say it's time to take a nap now, big boy. And that's exactly what happens. I eat that meal and then go to bed. That's the perfect thing to do for your body, isn't it? It'll grow on you. But you know what? You can also get too much sleep. You got to keep it balanced. Proverbs 6:10 and 11 says, yet a little sleep, a little slumber, and a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travaileth, and they want as an armed man. So it's important that we get the right amount of sleep, but it's also important that we get up and get about our day. We need to work, so we need to control also our sleep. Lack of sleep causes you to be tired. You know how come I know that? You know how come I know most of you are missing your sleep? Because you're sleeping most times through my sermon. I'm watching you. Luckily, none of you snore so far, or everyone will know it. But you're getting a yawn right now. I ain't gonna say it, but that timing couldn't have been any better. Oh my goodness gracious! So I know that there's sometimes problems that causes people to go to sleep. Don't get me wrong. I know medications and stuff like that, lack of sleep and stuff like that. Because there goes another yawn. I better get off this subject before everybody gets to sleep. Oh my goodness. But what happens when we get too tired? I cannot believe this. They say that people see you do something and they copy it, you're easy to hypnotize. I already know about 6 people in here that be easy to hypnotize. So just a mention of the word has got it started. If we can get people to follow Christ like they're following that young man. But what happens is most of us stay so busy in our life that we find ourselves at the end of the day and we haven't prayed, we haven't read our Bible. So we think, okay, well, I'm laying in the bed now. I'm ready to do this. You open up the Bible, you read about 10 verses, and it's like, okay, that's about all I can handle, reading. Let me pray. And it usually gets about this far. Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you for the blessings you've given me. And God, I really need... What we've done is we took what time we had and we wasted the time that God needed upon ourselves. We're not going to get hard tonight, but just think on that. Sometimes we do it too long and do things too much and we give God his second best. But we can't have pleasures. That's nothing wrong with pleasures. We just need to do that in moderation. Then we need to have control over the tongue. James chapter 3. James chapter 3, 5 and 6 says, even so the tongue is a little member. It's a member in most of our churches these days. And boasts great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. In that we need to stop gossiping in its tracks. It stirs up a fire. The Bible says the tongue is a fire. The reason I push that so much is because, like I said, a little bit of talk destroys. Amen. If you got a problem with the individual in this church, you go to that individual. That's right. Can I say this? If you go to anyone else, you're out of the Scripture. Why does he cause you to do that? Because he knows that little fire will eventually get out of control. Because it's the same old little game. Y'all remember the little game where you whisper and tell something in someone's ear? And they went around the classroom, and by the time that last person got up and said what was said, it was nowhere even close to the ballpark. That's what gossip is. Because you're only hearing one side of an argument, you're not hearing two. And you're not necessarily hearing it from the one that was even involved in it. They're hearing it from someone else. So if there's anything that I keep stressing in this church is no gossip. We don't need gossip. Amen. If you got things to talk about, you talk to the individual, and if that doesn't help, you talk to the Lord, and if that doesn't help, come talk to me. And we'll both together try to work it out and see what we can do. Sometimes it takes someone else to go with that individual and talk to an individual. They are steps to get it over with. But it's not through telling one another everyone's problems. Amen. Like I said, I ain't going to try to make this a tough night, but that's one that will split up a church quicker than anything, because like the Bible said, it's a small member, but it stirs big problems. So that tongue among our members that defileth the whole body and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire, which brings eventually destruction. We need to make sure that everything we say is truth. If you're going to say something, at least make sure it's truth on all sides, not just halfway. Matter of fact, my mama had always said, and I'm sure yours has too, said, if you ain't got nothing good to say about something, don't say nothing at all. That's a good principle to live by. And my wife wonders why I'm quiet all the time. Not against my wife. She's a sweet. I'll tell you, she's a sweet. She's mine, but she's a sweet. Colossians chapter 4, verse 6, it says, let your speech be always, not sometimes, always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how you ought to answer every man. What's that mean, preacher? That means that even sometimes when you have to rub the hard stuff in, you still do it with love and grace. Just like this morning, it was tough to go through that. I know it was. But you don't have any idea how tough it was from being this side having to dish it out either. When you love people as much as I love y'all, you have no idea. It's just exactly like the parents that keep saying it's going to hurt me more than it hurts you. It does. You don't ever want to see no one broken and hurt. But sometimes that has to happen. So if you have to do that, always do it with gentleness and kindness. Then we need to control our temper. James chapter 1:19 says, wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear. We get this backwards. Slow to speak and slow to wrath. We usually do it the other way. We're quick to speak, get angry very quickly, and usually don't hear what we're supposed to be hearing to begin with. You know how come I know that when people get in an argument, they're never going to settle that argument? It's when that person is sitting there telling their side of it, and the other one's sitting there just like this. You know what that person's doing? They're thinking of a rebuttal answer before they even got what's been spoken. That's what happens in most marriages in arguments. You get to fussing at one another. You're not even listening to the other person's thoughts or ideas. You're listening how you're going to defend yourself and how you're going to respond to that. So we need to be careful and make sure that we're not getting angry for no reason and that we're listening carefully and making sure. One of the best ways to make sure you're hearing it right is you always repeat and say, am I hearing you correctly by saying and repeat what they say? You'll find out how many times they say, that's not at all what I'm saying. Not at all. But that's something that we need to work on. Ephesians chapter 4:26, it says, be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. That's another hard one for couples. They get into that argument, and they're all sucked up like this, and they're mad. The other one done hurt the other one's feelings. I ain't going to talk to you, and I ain't going to talk to you, and I ain't going to look at you, and I ain't going to look at you, and all this other stuff. And then when it gets nighttime, it's the same way. Still in the bed, nice and cold. It might be 100 degrees outside, but that bed is ice cold. You can feel the ice coming off of each other. But you know what you're doing? You're sitting there saying, well, if they don't say they're sorry, I'm not saying I am. Well, that still makes it last for a long time. It's easy just to say, you know what, I'm sorry. I may be wrong here. I had to do it to my wife. I hate doing that. Don't I, baby? I'm never wrong. Y'all didn't know that, but I'm never wrong. But the other day, I was talking, and my problem is, if I'm talking and if you interrupt me, what I was talking about has done went out the back door. I no more know what I was saying than nothing, and yet I want you to understand what I'm saying and remember it. But I don't even remember what I'm saying. And so I was saying something, and she started to tell her part on that, and it wasn't nothing about each other. And I said, I ain't through yet. And then when I went to the bathroom, I thought, boy, that sounded awful rude. I'm not through yet. She probably thought, well, I really don't care. I wouldn't care what you're saying to begin with about just being nice and listening. So I had to go back in there and say, that was rude. That was rude. I shouldn't have said that. See, Billy, some of the things you've been doing, trying to rub off. It takes a little time. But in all reality, we need to keep our anger under control. I've seen people get so angry over such stupid little things. I didn't get my way. Well, newsflash, 90% of us or more probably hadn't got our way. How many's got more money than they know what to do with? Please raise your hand. I need to know where I can go. Nobody? I would say then that all of us hadn't got exactly our way, unless you enjoy being in poverty. You know, some people might. But anyhow, we need to make sure that we're keeping that anger at bay. I hear people say, people say all the time, I'm just going to give them a piece of my mind. Most of them people that's making that statement ain't got enough mind to be given away. They don't pay that. Best not to give your piece of your mind all the time. It might be a good thing to hang on to it for. Proverbs chapter 29:11 says, a fool uttereth all on his mind, but a wise man keepeth it until afterwards. You don't have to say everything you've got to say right then. There's a time and a place to bring everything up. And a lot of times it's best after the heat's settled. And test the water before you do. Make sure it's just a little bit warm. And then bring it back up and say what I was trying to say to those. Matter of fact, the Bible says agree with your enemy quickly, lest you wind up and find yourself in jail. In essence, is what it's saying. So our temper can get us in trouble. We need to do that. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are expedient, the Bible says. According to our freedom, we can do a lot of things, but it's not always best. We must have discipline to read the Bible, to pray, and give. Give's a tough one for a lot of people, but we need to be sure that we're givers. Christ was disciplined. He kept saying, I must be about my Father's business. God himself knew what it meant. Wasn't you glad the Apostle Paul was disciplined? You remember them sitting there saying, Paul, don't go to Jerusalem, son. Don't go. They're after you. Their intent is to capture you and kill you. Paul said, hey, in essence, he said, I got to go. That's my call. So we need to be that way with Christ. Where does discipline come from? It comes from having a vision and having a purpose in life. If you don't have a vision and if you don't have a purpose, trust me, it's easy to walk away. It's easy not to do it. Paul said he was pressing toward the mark of the high calling. He had nothing else in sight. He had done locked eyes on what he wanted to do. There was a finished course that he wanted to run, and that's what he was doing. It was something that he said he must do. He disciplined himself to run the race that God has set before him. Then we need to control over our time. Luke 10:41, and Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things. Many things. What he's trying to say is that, Martha, you got a lot of irons in the fire. You ever seen those people who wants to please everybody? I told you before, my sister's one of those. She plans everything. If you even mention you like fried catfish, you're going to have catfish, french fries, coleslaw and all, and you may just have it that morning. But she thinks that's what you want, so she's going to do it. Martha was that way. She was more concerned about making sure everything was right and she was getting everything done regardless of whether anyone asked her to do it or not. And what Jesus is trying to say is, Martha, you're missing the biggest thing here. You're mad at your sister because she won't help you in the kitchen. But she found out what the purpose is. What's the purpose? She was at the foot of Jesus. She was wanting to serve the Lord. She wanted to listen from the Lord. And we get busy doing great things and wonderful things for people. But the problem is we get so busy we leave the main mission out. We got to keep focused and make sure we're doing what God wants us to do. And that we're keeping close to Him. Because through all the good works and all the good things, if we lose contact with Him and staying close to Him, we're going to fail miserably. And we're going to find ourselves in a mess. Time flies by quickly, doesn't it? Like I said before, it seemed like only yesterday I had my little Matchbox cars playing on the road with a bunch of kids. Them days are gone. By the time you reach 40, which the majority of the people in here are 40, I'd say close. Close? Yeah. You're 35? You got 5 more years of living. Enjoy it. Once you reach 40, though, you're already 50% over your mark. By the time you're 80, you know, it's getting close to the end then. Now, we're promised 120. So just because you're 80 don't mean you're at the end, Lynn, while she's looking at that other person with them eyeballs raised up. Just because you're 80 don't mean that's the end of your life. We're promised 120 years. Who wants to live 120 years? One person. Anyone else wants to live 120? I'll say it like this: I want to live 120 years old. If my body's in good shape, if I can do the things I still need to do, and we don't have a country that's went completely crazy. But otherwise, I'm ready. I'm ready to move on to where I really belong. This is not my country. This is not my home. But once you get to that age, majority's life is running about 80 now, 79, 80. And a matter of fact, it's backing on down some more. So if you're past 80, God's been good to you. But my whole point is not so much about when you're going to leave, but what are you doing with the time you got left? Because like I said, once we reach 40, we've already lost that part. We don't need to lose anymore. And for me, I'm doing a lot of catch-up. I'm trying my best to catch up on years that I wasted. It's time to stop playing church. It's time to stop halfway living the faith. It's time to start halfway serving Christ. Let me ask you a question. I don't want you to get answered out loud. Think of how much time you spend watching TV. First things a lot of people do is they get up and watch the news for an hour and two. How depressing is that? I feel like that once we get into a nuclear war, I'm going to know it because my hair is going to be singed. I feel like that by the time we get to where we've lost all our money, I know it because I go to the store and ain't no one going to have any. What are you saying? I'm saying news might be important, but it ain't nothing you can do about it, so why keep worrying about it? I had a friend of mine that watches CNN all the time when 9/11 hit. All the time. 24/7, sitting right in front of that TV. You know that man was scared to death to walk out the door? Scared to death. Still is. And don't listen to the news media. What goes on in this world is not controlled by what goes on in the Christian's world. We have the answer, we have the solution, we have the one that can take care of it. Just rest and let him take care of his job. You say, well, it don't look like he's doing a good job. He's doing a perfect job. He's doing exactly what prophecy had said is going to happen. He knows exactly what's up and he's letting it happen. And if the church don't come alive and start a revival, then we're getting into the end days and this thing's going to wind up. God ain't up there not knowing what's going on. He knows, so don't stress over all that. But how much time do you watch TV? How many people, don't raise your hands, how many people spend the 2 or 3 hours in soap operas with them same stupid actors that's been around for the past 300 years and still don't know how to act? Or the one that's been in their deathbed 3 different times and raised the dead again. I remember coming in the door one time, that stupid old thing was on, and I looked at that person, and I said, 20 years ago, that person died. Is that a new character? Oh, no. No, they come back alive. Really? Yeah, well, this is the 3rd time they had. No, you're in a fantasy then. But we spend all that time. How much time do you read books that's worthless? What do you mean worthless? I'm talking about the stuff that brings junk in your mind. Lots. We spend lots of time doing stuff like that. We're doing a lot of things that we're not called to do. Don't mean that we can't have fun, buddy. I believe in having fun. You know what I decided to? That's not really I decided, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyhow. It makes it sound like it's my idea. Since it was so rough this morning, I'm going to do you a good favor. On Wednesday night, come over and we'll have a bunch of ice cream, homemade ice cream. How's that sound? You didn't know it was in the bulletin, right? We are doing that, right? Yes, we are. Thank God, because I thought I ain't going to buy all that. So make sure you come out Wednesday night. You can grow with me. We'll grow the church one way or another. We'll grow it in numbers or we'll grow it in width. We'll make sure we'll fill up these benches one way or another.
This Wednesday, next week.
Not this Wednesday.
You got to tell me.
I ain't buying no ice cream. Come the next Wednesday, huh?
You said homemade.
Oh, homemade. I'll make it. Y'all eat it. Yeah, you won't like that. Yeah, you like rock salt, so that's about what it tastes like. Galatians chapter 5:16, it says, this I say then. This is how we do this stuff. It's not in our power. All these different things. Walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. So the answer that we need to every one of these, including our temper and everything else that's in there, is we learn to walk in the Spirit that God gives us. Amen. Let's go ahead and have a word of prayer.